based on last week's presentation where we decided to show the temple ceremony, we received this email. Listen to the tone, the authoritarian tone, and then the threats that are involved in this. This is from one man who calls himself Samueler. The Jews and Pharisees were so sure they were right in their assessment of Jesus that they crucified him. That was a big oops. How can someone, after seeing that lesson in history, be so sure of their puny reasoning power compared to God's wisdom as to bring about another crucifixion? This is what you're doing with the LDS temple ceremony. Why do you think you have more reasoning power than the foremost leaders of those days when they crucified Jesus? You are using the mind and wisdom of men and not the spirit in making your decisions. God told us not to do that. Furthermore, over the years, I've given you plenty of rebuttals to your claims which you have not addressed. The turning of your back to my help should worry you and help you suspect that the LDS could be right and that it would be a dangerous undertaking to publicize the temple ceremony. Not only that, but to make fun of it as well. Here's some more help from me so that you can change your mind if you are humble and smart enough. You wonder how people in the early LDS church can be saved by not knowing the changes in the temple ceremony. Well, here's a simple answer. Jesus healed some people by putting mud on their eyes. Others he simply healed by stating his blessing. Another time it was dip oneself in the river 7 times. What? A change in healing methods? So which method of healing should we use? Perhaps the key word is faith. Perhaps it's obedience. Perhaps it's whether God tells us whatever God tells us at the moment. I guarantee you that the temple ceremony will change again in the future. It will change dramatically because needs and circumstances will change dramatically. And that's why we have prophets to let us know changing circumstances and their necessary resolutions. I've given you a plausible explanation for various versions of the first vision. It stunk. I've given you explanations for Joseph's polygamous behavior. It sucked. I've talked about Book of Mormon, the Egyptian Book of Abraham, the Egyptian papers. I've done as much as I possibly can, all with no rebuttal from you. Now I've given you help with the changing temple ceremony. So if you go ahead with your planned itinerary, then I'm dusting my feet off at you again. And this will result in more problems for you, not just a 5-minute blackout at God's hands. I don't know how, when it will happen, but it will happen in God's own time. It will happen. You can count on that. Don't say you've never received fair warning. This email is a poster child for more manipulation and Mormonicious rhetoric. First, his logic is so messed up, I can hardly read it in print. The Pharisees crucified Jesus, and I am doing the same thing to the temple ceremony. I mean, how? I can't even comment. Second, he's given me so many sound and reasonable insights that I am without excuse. Third, he likens Jesus' healings method to the changes in the LDS temple. Jesus' healings methods weren't given as a sign of how to get into heaven, of what you had to do specifically and exactly in order to get into heaven. So again, his logic and his comparisons, they just stink. But finally, we see the threats. I mean, he assumes that last week's blackout was a punishment from God. That's using God's name in vain as far as I'm concerned. And then he does the easiest thing on earth when it comes to a threat. I warn you, you are going to suffer. I don't know when it's going to happen. I can't tell you how, but I promise you. So I get an infected tooth, and I'm in the dentist chair, and he's giving me a root canal, and you can't help but think, is this because this is how humans work, and so that's how they get you. Anything that goes wrong, he's trying to get into my head to think it's because of this. Let me tell you something, you piece of wimpiness. You're a liar, and what you're trying to do is manipulate me with fear. I don't fear. I have faith in the Lord Jesus Christ and in God. So you can take your priesthood and all your veiled threats and put them somewhere else. All right.